are now in the stope, S-T-O-P-E, like stop with an E at the end. This is where they would have mined the ore itself out. So at one point, this was just solid rock, it's part of the mountain. And if you look straight up, you won't actually see anything. That's what I'm looking for. Any hard hats that fall off. Anyway, but up at the back, which is what we call the ceiling, nearby, or all over the place, you'll see this greenish color. Some oxidized copper ore. It's kind of all over the place because when you mine underground, you can't get absolutely everything. You get all the easy stuff. This is just the color. Copper likes to oxidize too. Sometimes it'll oxidize blue, sometimes it'll oxidize purple, but most of the time it's going to be green. There are over 600 varieties of mineral and ore for copper, a lot of them green. Any of the red you see, like this little spot right up here, it's hematite, it's a low-grade iron ore. It was once pyrite. All the sulfur weathered away, left behind that iron and the rock itself, and you get hematite. And that's actually where most of our gold is found. Bisbee was a bonanza mine, so we had a whole bunch of metals, and gold is one of them. And we're actually the largest gold and silver mine currently in Arizona, just Arizona. I can only say that for a short period of time. Pretty soon, Quartzite, another mine in Arizona, they're going to be catching up on the gold side, and I can't say that anymore. But so far, I can say we're still the largest gold and silver mine in Arizona, even though we haven't mined since the 70s. So we pulled out 7.8 million ounces of gold, 77 million ounces of silver, several hundreds of millions of pounds of lead, zinc, and manganese, but we're mainly known for the copper, of which we pulled out over 8 billion pounds. That's more than the entire state of Michigan and all of their copper mines combined, because Michigan was the original copper state of the US until everybody started moving west. So that's a lot of ore coming out of here in Bisbee for a very, very brief period of time in history. It might have been a day or so. 30% of the world's copper actually came right out of Bisbee. So pretty industrious little place here. We've got 43 levels total, each level separated by 100 feet of rock, plus a couple of sub-levels as well. And so 10 levels up into the mountains here, like where we're at on level 3. And then there's 33 levels down into the earth. Our deepest mine, the Campbell Shaft, is 3,300 feet deep. And it's about this warm all year long down on those 30 plus levels in the Campbell Shaft, even hotter, even around 90 degrees or so. It's pretty hot down there. And we also have around 2,200 miles of track and tunnel. So we're just going to be seeing about 150 or 1,500 feet of track and tunnel. But Bisbee has about 2,200 miles of it. So if you were to stretch that out into end, you could cross the entire continental US, no problem. Speaking of the heat, it does get hot the further down you go, but fortunately Bisbee didn't get too hot. It's nothing like the Comstock mine, which was in what is now Virginia City, Nevada. Their rock wall is about 175 degrees all the time because they've got geothermal activity. At the bottom of their shafts, there's sumps that collect the water. It's literally boiling. Lots of people died in that mine just from heat exhaustion. If you're a miner down there and you're drilling away, you mine for about 2 minutes, and then they have to swap you out with somebody else before you pass out and melt on the floor. So pretty nasty place there. Fortunately, Bisbee is one of the safer and more sanitary mines here in the country. And we learned from the Comstock, and we used these square sets. So this timber structure. This timber structure is called the square set, and we are in a square set stope. So there are many ways to mine a stope, but this one in particular, we're using these timber structures. And we use those to protect ourselves and as scaffolding. So you start at the bottom of your stope and you make your way up towards the back. So you get copper, forms a large ore body, a big blob underground. You figure out how big it is, and you start at the bottom in sections and layers. You mine the first section, the first layer of the first section. Then you move up to the next one and up to the next, all the while backfilling behind you, so that way you got something to stand on. Just a bunch of waste rock that you pulled out of mine already. If you're using one of these in the 1870s, late 1870s, like they would be using in Bisbee. We would be using them along with hand tools, these here. So just a hammer and a chisel basically. We did not have machine drills until the turn of the century, because Bisbee was, and still kind of is, the middle of nowhere. It was really hard to get stuff down here. If you wanted to get equipment down in Bisbee before the turn of the century, you'd have to load it onto a freight car, hook up 40 mules to it over in Benson, Arizona, which is around 60 miles away from here. Then you have to drag it down to Tombstone, over the Dragoon Mountains, through over to the Mule Mountains, and you go up over the Mule Mountains, down in the canyon, and then you finally have your equipment. So pretty hard to get stuff down here until about 1889 when the rail was established to El Paso. So these were the tools of the trade till then. If you're using these, the way you use drills when you're mining here in Bisbee is to drill holes into the rock. And what do you do with the holes? Well, you stuff them full of dynamite and you blow it up. So all the mining here was done using explosives, maybe a little bit of black powder, but mostly dynamite, even out in the open pit when they started that in 1917. But pretty hard work. If you're good at it, you can drill a foot deep every hour and a half or so. So that's about 80 strikes per minute, and you're doing that for 8 to 10 hours a day. Lots of hard work. Of course, you don't work alone, so you only start the hole with two tools like this, a star steel and a single jack. It's 4 pounds. Once they're all collared, and you're drilling 6 of these holes, and they all need to be about 4 feet deep. So once they're all a foot deep, then you move on to the next changer steel about this length. You get into the hole, and then you pick up the 8-pound double jack hammer, and you ask your partner to hold on to that drill steel so that way it doesn't bounce out of the wall while you're swinging the hammer in the back of it. And you're doing all this by candlelight as well. Miners here in Bisbee got 3 to 4 10-inch candles per shift, and they were doing that all the way till 1910 when everybody finally had carbide lamps, which are just like a little open flame torch, a acetylene torch, and it is about as bright as 10 candles. So still not very bright, but much better than working with candlelight. All right, does anybody have any questions? All right, I think everything else I can talk about at the next stop, or it's a little cooler. So